Hello and welcome back to another FPL transfer tips video. Last week we saw ourselves with another 50% success ratio, which in the grand scheme of things isn't too great. It takes us down to 66% season success rate, obviously looking at just the immediate game week, so can't really use this as an examination of how the transfers are going over the course of the season, because obviously it is only one game week. You can see, for example, we had Vardy all down as an avoid for last week, obviously playing against Southampton. We did say this last week that he probably was going to end up picking up a clean sheet, and I think I actually did say he would probably end up getting about 8 or 9 points, which he did end up getting. But for me personally, I don't think he's a great pick for the long term. I don't think he's really going to be able to match that over the next couple of weeks, because Man City haven't been great defensively, and Vardiol's attacking stats, his underlying stats in the attacking range, haven't really been too great. So I do think he is an avoid. Obviously we take a hit on the success rate for the season purely for that. Keane, obviously not really a great pick. He ended up doing pretty poorly, which we did kind of expect. Havertz and Mbeumo, perfect. We said buy Mbeumo if you haven't already. Another 15 pointer for him, and it just looks as though it's just going to keep coming because the fixtures are great for him. Havertz, a sell, with obviously pretty difficult fixtures coming up. It was the same with Saka. Unfortunately, ended up returning very early on in the game against Liverpool, and then unfortunately we put down Son as a buy, who ended up not playing, which wasn't ideal. By the looks of things, he was able to play. It was just a rest for him, just in case that injury that he has been carrying gets any worse. So realistically, if you were to swap Saka and Son about, it would have been a brilliant week, but we take it on the chin. We hopefully can get ourselves back up above that 70% mark, but let's take a look and see who we've got for this week. So we're starting ourselves off with Chris Wood this week. Picked up 2 goals last game week, and has been a very, very good asset if you've had him for the last few weeks now. He is one of the most, if not the most, transferred in player so far this week. He's got over 200,000 transfers in, and his fixtures are decent coming up. I personally think he's a buy. Again, we can look at his other stats. He's still got some pretty decent stats as a striker, sitting at 7th for expected goals. He's 2nd for points from strikers, only behind Erling Haaland. So in terms of value, he's clearly living up to it. And then for shots on target, he's also joint with some of the more expensive players, the likes of Watkins and Jackson. And then obviously shots on target wise, Haaland is way, way above anyone else. But again, like I said, 2nd for shots on target from strikers, 2nd from points on strikers. Definitely one of the best performing strikers so far this season. And again, his fixtures are not fantastic. He's not got the best run of fixtures. He's got Arsenal and Manchester City in there away from home. But personally, I think for example, West Ham at home, Newcastle at home, Ipswich at home in the next 4, 3 of his next 4 fixtures are still really nice. So I think as long as you've got a backup plan for that Arsenal game where you could bench him, I think he's a really good buy for the next 4 weeks, and then you can look to move him on potentially after that Manchester City game. So for me, definitely a buy, definitely a short-term one, just have a plan before he plays Arsenal. Next up we have Luis Diaz. Now for me, he's going to be a sell this week. Liverpool's fixtures are actually pretty decent over the next few, but Diaz's minutes is where it starts to be a bit of an issue. He was obviously really great at the start of the season on some of the form of his life, matching the likes of Salah for the first few weeks, but now there's a lot of rotation going on in that Liverpool team. Diaz hasn't been getting the starts, every single game. And obviously with that Champions League fixtures every 2 weeks now, there is going to be rotation, especially with the likes of Gakpo, who can also play at left wing. So you can see by his expected points, he's still not expected to be doing too great purely because of those minutes. He's under 3 points expected for the next 3 games. And he's due to drop in price as soon as possible. Maybe by the time this video comes out, he has already dropped to 7.8 million. He's been transferred out 100,000 times so far this week. Obviously picked up an assist against Arsenal, which was great if you do still have him, but personally I think he's just too much of a risk. You don't know if he's going to be starting every single game, and at that point for 7.9 million you might as well be selling him, and then for example going to an Mbeumo if you don't have him already. And there's obviously so many good cheap midfield options that you can get right now, or potentially upgrade to the likes of a Heung-min Son, a Saka, Palmer, those kind of players. Now next up is our next buy, which is Rayan Ait-Nouri. Now there's been a lot of hype over him over the last week or so, and it's definitely justified. You know, he's scored 3 goals and got 2 assists now in a very difficult run of fixtures for Wolves. You've got to keep that in mind, that Wolves had probably the most difficult run for the first 8 or so game weeks. They're now coming into a very, very nice run, and Ait-Nouri is starting to perform, or continue at least, his performances. So he's already risen to 4.5 million. He looks due to rise to 4.6 million. Great fixtures over the next few. 2 home fixtures against Palace and Southampton, some of the weakest teams in the league so far this season. And again, if we take a look at his stats, you can look at the key passes, you can look at the expected goal involvements. He's right up there with the top defenders. For key passes, he's sitting in 5th place. Expected goal involvements, he's sitting in 9th. He was a lot higher before this week. I believe he was 5th for expected goal involvements as well. Shots for defenders, he's in 7th. So yeah, I mean, he scored at the weekend, which is why there's obviously a lot more hype going about him now. Only 6% owned right now. I believe he was 4% owned last week. I brought him into my team. But for example, looking at the fixtures, Crystal Palace, Southampton, Bournemouth, 3 home fixtures in there, green fixtures, also get Everton in there. You're looking at some poorly performing teams, potential for a Wolves clean sheet, the first of the season. They haven't kept it yet, but there is potential for some Wolves clean sheets in there, and of course, attacking wise, Ait-Nouri has been fantastic. So 100% would be looking to buy him. The only concern is he is 1 yellow card away from a suspension. So similar to Chris Wood, just make sure you have someone on your bench that you can rotate with him if he does pick up that other yellow card, because he will be suspended for 1 match, and you're obviously going to be unable to play him. Hopefully it's not for one of our easier fixtures. Ideally, he gets booked in the Southampton game, and then we don't have him for Fulham, because that could have potentially been a benching for him anyway. But yeah, it's just something to keep in mind. But I definitely think he is a buy. So we had him in the video last week as a sell. We've got him in the video again this week as an avoid, because obviously he scored against Liverpool and he is starting to be transferred in by a lot of players. He's got 120,000 transfers in already so far, and again, it's not as though that 1 goal against Liverpool means he's going to, do that in every single game. Obviously, he is one of those guys who could be considered fixture proof, but for his price, he's not going to be getting any big hauls over the next few games, in my opinion. He's got Newcastle away, he's got Chelsea away, Nottingham Forest. Again, Nottingham Forest have been very solid defensively. So yes, he probably will pick up a return here or there over the next few. He's not going to be picking up any big hauls, and for that 10 million price tag, you're definitely going to be wanting that. You've got the likes of Palmer and Son at similar prices who are probably going to be picking up hauls over the next few games. So for me, if you're looking to buy a premium midfielder, Saka would probably be bottom of the list. Again, someone we can look at from Gameweek 12, where Arsenal's fixtures do start to look good, but for the next 3 weeks, definitely an avoid. No worries about price changes in terms of having to quickly buy them or anything, or sell them off. But for me, I would be looking to avoid them, because I think there's just better options with those premium midfielders. And next we have Yoane Wissa as our 3rd buy of the video, and yeah, I really like him as a pick. He's only 5.9 million. He's again one of your cheaper strikers who is doing really well, has just came back from injury, and obviously, similar to Mbeumo, have a really nice run of fixtures. They've got Fulham, they've got Bournemouth, Everton. I don't know if you clocked it in our previous graphic, but Wissa is actually sitting 6th for expected goals from strikers. Now, considering the fact he's only played 6 matches and everyone else has played 9, that's still very, very impressive. You give Wissa the time to catch up with the rest, and he's probably going to be sitting top 3, top 4. For a Brentford striker, it's definitely a very decent move. And again, do you want to double up with Mbeumo? It could be, a little bit of maybe too much on the Brentford attack. There is obviously a lot of good options in striker right now. You've got Wood, we've already spoke about. You've got Haaland, you've got Cunha, you've got Wissa, you've got a lot of players. Isak scored at the weekend as well. So potentially one that you could hold off on if you've got Mbeumo already. Is there really a need for 2 Brentford attackers? I'm not really too sure. But if you're feeling it, I definitely think it's a decent move. Maybe you can't get to Mbeumo in your midfield. I definitely would prefer Mbeumo if maybe you're asking yourself that. I think Mbeumo's definitely a better pick. But as an extra striker option, if you're looking for a striker this week, I definitely think Wissa is a very nice buy. And another player who we had in our video last week, again, has been sold off quite a bit already so far this week, is Heung-min Son. We had him as a buy last week, so of course we've got him as a keep this week. He's been sold off 112,000 times already, obviously missed out through injury, was really just a rest, so I don't know if that's why people have been selling him off, thinking that he is still injured, but there's still really nice fixtures for Spurs coming up. Aston Villa, you can easily do something against, and obviously Ipswich being that main fixture that he is probably a potential captaincy as well. So if you've brought Son in over the last week or two since he's came back from his injury, definitely would be holding on to him. Nothing to worry about in my opinion from his injury point of view. They do have Manchester City in the FA Cup on Wednesday, which is something we can keep an eye on. Is he going to get minutes? I probably doubt that he is going to get minutes, considering that he was fully rested at the weekend despite being okay to play. I don't think they're going to risk him in the FA Cup as well. They could potentially bring him on as a sub, again, just something that we can keep an eye on. But I think he's going to be totally okay. Spurs play on Sunday, so he's got that extra day over everyone else as well. And obviously that Ipswich fixture is something that we're really going to be wanting to have Son for. He is due to drop in price. Personally, I would just be ignoring it. But I definitely think Son is even just one to buy right now still. If you've got him obviously being as a keep, I definitely still think he could be a decent option to buy. Obviously wait until his price drops down to 9.8 million for that, but still think he's a good option over the next few weeks. And then finally, rounding things off, we have Ollie Watkins. For me, this week, he is going to be a sell. Now, not to say that he has been poor, he's still definitely up there. I think he's fourth for expected goals so far this season, only behind Haaland, Wood and Jackson, at least for forwards that is. But for me, I think his price tag's a little bit too much for a striker who you can kind of get the same output from someone who is 3 million cheaper. He's got difficult fixtures over the next couple with Spurs and Liverpool, so maybe someone we can look at to rebuy in the future. In my opinion, if you've already got Morgan Rogers, there's no need to have that double Aston Villa attack as well with these next two fixtures that they've got. And obviously being able to sell him off to, for example, a Chris Wood or a Cunha or a Wissa that we've just spoke about. You can save yourself 3 million and potentially upgrade to like a Cole Palmer, maybe a Mohamed Salah as well. So for me, I think he's definitely a sell. Not, again, like I said, not to say anything on his form. I think he can still do well in his games. He's not really been poor. I just think there's better options for better value. So for me, I'd be selling him this week. I'd be looking to get a cheaper striker in, for example, some of the ones we've already spoke about. So this is how it's looking for this week. We have 7 players on our list again, hopefully looking to build ourselves back up above that 70% seasonal success rate. We've got 3 buys this week and we've got 2 sells along with 1 keep and 1 avoid. So let me know down in the comments what you think of this week's transfer tips. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new for more FPL stuff, and I'll see you all in the next one.